Yeah, so everybody, welcome to tonight's DevNQ meetup. I think we've got some fantastic panelists for you. As with all of these panels, I think you'll get out as much as you put in. So have your questions ready, be really interactive. And I think you'll find the panelists are up for any of your difficult questions. So do go for it. While we're going on, if you can just keep yourselves muted and use the raise hand functionality if you've got a question to ask. So before we get going, I think it's worth noting quite a really special milestone that we had a couple of weeks ago in terms of the Townsville startup and developer scene, and I think significant for Townsville as a city. And this was the unicorn status of some friends we all know and love at SafetyCulture. So Tristan, could I put you on the spot and just briefly get you to just talk to us about what it means to have been part of a business that has reached that status, and talk a little bit about sort of what got you into it in the early days?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. So in the early days of SafetyCulture, it was kind of, well, I mean, it was just a couple of us hacking away in a garage, right? So I think none of us thought anything of what would become of the company over time. We were just there to build a kind of great product that solved a problem. It turns out we did that, and the company has gone on to be kind of quite successful off the back of that product. They're now in the space of kind of imagining and launching new products and going about kind of taking the world by storm in a pile of different industries. So it's really exciting to see that a company like that can come out of Townsville, and that it doesn't take much to well, I mean, it takes a lot, but it's not like being in North Queensland precludes businesses from becoming kind of global tech companies. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, fantastic. I think we're all super proud of the work you guys have done, and we're looking forward to hopefully getting a ride around town in the Ferraris once they start arriving. Well done. Now, I'd like to introduce our panel. It's a really diverse panel with people that have got some really interesting experience. So I'm actually as interested as the rest of you in hearing about their stories and what's driven them to this point. So we've got Stuart King. Stu, you might be the oldest on the panel, so I'll ask you to just introduce yourself briefly first in terms of what you're up to at the moment.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. So at the moment, I'm doing a few different things. I run a very small one-man software company called Fierce Ventures. I am the consulting sort of data scientist at Townsville City Council, and I chair the board of directors for Smart Precinct. I work closely with Matt on that, where he's CEO, and Tristan, who has a seat on the board, as well as other entrepreneurial technology people from the community. My background is building backend services to mobile services before mobile was really a thing. I was lucky enough to work on the world's first mobile banking application. This was before the days of iPhone and Android. I've worked at Optus, building out their MyZoo Now carrier platform. I've done a lot of stuff in back-end mobile services. I've also had my own company, spent nearly 5 years in San Francisco, raised some money, had a couple of acquisitions, a couple of exits. And now I find myself back in North Queensland raising a family. I have 4 little kids, and my wife's a doctor, works full-time, so pretty busy life.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'll try not to be influenced by the fact that Stu is the chairman in the organisation that I'm trying to run it all on this call. Now we'll go to Don Cull.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Don.
So yeah, I guess a little bit about me. I'm not really from Townsville. I'm from Toowoomba. Did my last years of schooling in Gladstone. and I did an apprenticeship as a bricklayer. Finished the trade and did a few different jobs, and still was unsure what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. So I went traveling overseas, went to China, met my partner, ended up in London for a year or so, and her dad worked in IT, and her mum actually used Code Academy to get her bearings on a few things that she was teaching her kids. So they recommended me to look at that, and that's where it all started. I did a couple of things on Code Academy, and I was hooked. Still working as a bricklayer, trying to figure out where I fit in that IT space. I eventually moved back to Australia. I was in the Townsville area. I was actually camping around North Queensland, and I wasn't actually sure if I could get into JCU, and I just thought, oh, surely my trade will convert over into an OP. And I put my application in. I got in, and I was ecstatic because I just thought, there's no way a sort of a simple sort of bricklayer person like me would ever be able to do IT. And yeah, got accepted. I was a typical mature age student. I did all my assignments weeks before they were due. I was probably very annoying in group assignments. Got to work for junior engineers, teaching kids how to code. Funnily enough, I was learning it at the same time, but I didn't actually let them know that. Got to work at Annandale State School, helping kids with laptop issues, and various sort of tutoring and mentoring roles at JCU. In my last year of uni, I got a job as a developer at Finance One, mostly working in front-end projects using React. But we wrote a lot of scripts to interact with their finance software using VB scripts, which was interesting. So after finishing my degree, I applied for the graduate scheme at JCU, and currently I'm working as an associate software engineer at JCU, which is their graduate position. I'm working on automating and improving existing student survey systems that are written in some sort of older programming languages and sort of structures like Perl and Cold Fusion. So looking to improve those and move them into the 21st century, I guess. I'm working on APIs to expose JCU course information and research grant information in Golang, which is really cool. And also we'll be working on more React apps in the future. Yeah, that's pretty much me. Just had a kid. My little girl's 7, like a week old now. So yeah, enjoying the North Queensland life, working in IT.
Fantastic. Mate, congratulations on the birth of your girl. You're looking incredibly fresh. I don't know if you're using a beautifying filter, but for a guy with a 7-day-old baby, you're looking pretty good right now. Now, Caleb, I'm going to call on you next. I'd love you to tell us what you're doing now, but if you can hold off telling us how you got into the software game, because I think I'd like to save that for a little bit later in the talk.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Caleb. I'm 23 and I've got 2 kids. One is 2 and the other one is 5, and they're crazy. And especially with the COVID-19, it's been crazy working from home with them. I've been working remotely for a solar company as their only dev, their full stack for the last 2 years, I think. It might be about a year to 2 years. And I've been working remotely for them the whole time. So before coronavirus, I was working remotely. And yeah, we mainly work, well, because I'm the only dev, I do a lot of full stack stuff there. So I'm pretty much working on everything in the IT space there. So I do a lot, mainly to do with web. We have a web app, and that's mostly it. We have mobile apps, but mostly web app. So everything to do with that, those front end, back end, database, infrastructure, and all that is all the stuff that I deal with.
Fantastic. It's there's got to be something special about being the only one that the whole company's relying on in terms of all of that infrastructure. Now, Miranda, can you just tell us what you're up to at the moment, please?
Yeah, so I'm currently working at Glencore in a superintendent role, looking after application support, systems development, business report development, and project delivery. And we look after Glencore's Australian copper and zinc assets. You might be familiar with Mount Isa Mines, but we also look after the copper refinery in Townsville and the port. So we've got a facility down at the port. A little bit about my background. First started out in IT. I did some work experience in sugar mills. Went on, did a school-based traineeship when I finished year 11 and 12, and then went off to uni. So I grew up in Innisfail. I come to Townsville and never really saw myself staying in Townsville. I thought it'd be temporary. I'd do my degree and move on to Brisbane or something like that. But I was pleasantly surprised to find some really good work opportunities in Townsville, working for BHP, Queensland Nickel, and now Glencore, all based in Townsville. So there's plenty of options there. Now, while working on completing my Masters of Business Administration, RMIT or MBA. Probably just another tidbit. When I first started in IT and I was at uni, I could count the number of women, including myself, on one hand. Since now, I've rapidly seen the number of women in the workforce in all sorts of different roles increasing. And it's really good to see some of that coming through out of the uni students as well. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And thanks for touching on that, Miranda. I think it's we know that the economy and all of our businesses are only going to move forward if we can harness all of the talent and not just half of it. So it's great to see you here and hear about that background. Now, Stu, if you can remember all the way back after all those achievements, all the way back to what you were doing before you knew anything about coding or getting behind what's going on in software. Tell us what you were doing immediately before you got into software development and what that was. How did you get into it? What was that first step?
You hear me? Sorry, I was muted. To be honest, I was wasting time at university doing something I wasn't particularly interested in, and I was actually spending more time as a cocktail bartender. And I feel I was lucky to have stumbled into technology. I was given a number of amazing opportunities by some incredible people, and when I realized I loved it, I just worked hard and sort of step-laddered my way through different opportunities.
That's a little bit mysterious, Stu. I want to pin you on this. Tell me, how did you get to your first hello world? What was the pieces? What was the language you were writing in, and why were you writing it?
Well, when I finished school, I didn't actually know what I wanted to do with my life. So I did the worst thing possible, I think, which is just a generic business degree. And in retrospect, I wish I'd done something much more interesting. But I had a friend who he had done something similar, and then he went and did a computer science degree and absolutely loved it and got a great job. And I was very curious about what he was doing. So I basically moved to do computer science from business. And after I graduated, I was very, very lucky to get a job for a company called Solnet Solutions in New Zealand. And Solnet at the time were the sole distributor of products for a company called Sun Microsystems. Now, for those of you who are a bit younger, Sun was the biggest early player in the rack server space. They were pioneers. They the company behind Java, and they had a suite of amazing educational products, certifications, courses, all kinds of things. And because I worked for this company in New Zealand, I was able to access all of that educational content for free. You know, stuff that's normally charged out for thousands of dollars. I was able to run through and basically upskill for nothing as a graduate developer. And I did that, and one of the certifications I did was what's called a Sun Certified Mobile App Developer. It was I was one of the first people in the world to do this course and have this expertise. Sun were experimenting in mobile, And just because I'd done that particular certification, I was suddenly in demand because mobile was taking off. J2ME and Symbian were basically, Nokia was selling, Motorola was selling huge amounts of handsets. This was just as mobile was taking off. And I got hired as a contractor. I'd only ever had one full-time job as a graduate developer working for 18 months in Auckland. And I got hired and I flew over to London and worked in a room with 12 very smart people for 6 months building this banking app, which was for the Royal Bank of Scotland. It was much more than a hello world, but I just learned a lot through that whole experience. I've just been lucky. I really feel lucky being able to sort of, step ladder my way through interesting projects. But that's really what triggered it is this company gave me a chance in New Zealand, and I was able to learn, some very niche skills at the time.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that idea of a mate that was earning good money but also doing interesting work, I think is one of those great reasons to be getting in a career, and lucky to be able to do it. I think we'll touch a little bit later on the concept of micro-credentialing and the importance of that as we sort of move forward, as I think that's sort of making a bit of a resurgence, and there might be some great opportunities out there for people on the call. Now, Caleb, I love your story in terms of where you've come from and how you got into this. So it'd be great if you could share that with us all.
Sure. Yeah, so I feel like I'm pretty lucky with my whole story, and it all started probably back in high school around grade 8 is where I guess I picked up my first sort of programming book, which was Python at the time. So I was just curious. I can't remember what sort of sparked my interest initially, but I just was gravitated towards like coding, and like the hacking scene was not something I was like super keen to get into, but it was like kind of cool. So I was like, coding, hacking, I didn't know where they overlapped or anything. So I just went in that direction, and I picked up this Python book and just copied the code into the computer and downloaded the program. And I was rubbish at it, and I really didn't understand anything. Like I didn't understand anything at all. I just copied it word for word, and I was able to change tiny little things in there and have it still work. And then anything more than that, it would break, and I wouldn't figure out why. And I didn't finish that whole book. I went through some chapters, and I thought these are getting boring, so I skipped to like way into the book, copied everything I saw in this really cool looking program, and then try to figure out why it wasn't working. What did I not copyright over the next few hours? And anyway, so I was like really liking that. But then I sort of steered away. Like I said, it was really hard for me at that age. I was not understanding it at all. And then I got into, grade 11, I picked up Visual Basic they were teaching us at the time. And that's when I really started to not really started, but I started to understand like the basic concept, and I was able to, make programs and stuff like that using the stuff that they were teaching us in high school. And I was really getting into it. I didn't do that great in high school. I couldn't pay attention, and high school wasn't great for me, but this one subject, on one aspect, the coding aspect was really good. I made a really cool program. It worked really great, and it was very sophisticated and cool. And I got like an A on that part of the assignment. And then the rest of the assignment, all the writing I had to do and just talking about it and all that, I still did terrible. But I was really good at the programming part. And then around that stage as well, after that, I got super into it, and I was like, okay, this is cool. But I don't know why I didn't want to do Visual Basic. I wanted to look at something else. I wanted to look at Java. Actually, I wanted to look at Java because I was into games, and we were into Minecraft in 2011, and that was like the big thing. So I wanted to make not Minecraft. I want to make plugins for Minecraft, which you had to use Java for. So I tried to pick up Java, and again, that just went like straight over my head. Couldn't get it. And over the next few years, I would pick up Java, and I would drop Java, and I'd pick it up again about 5 times before I actually started to make headway with it. And at that time, I was working in retail at Macdonald's. I ended up dropping out of high school. At this stage, I didn't think I was going to be a programmer. It wasn't even a consideration in my mind. All this stuff was just stuff I was tinkering around. I was always into computers, but not like, I didn't see a career in mind in that, or a career in anything, to be honest. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I'd been working at Macdonald's since grade 10. And then I dropped out in grade 12 because high school wasn't working for me. So I dropped out, worked at McDonald's, which was, I think, really good for me as a person. Like, honestly, it feels like a bad move, but reflecting on, I do the same thing. I think it built a lot of good social skills and stuff like that. Was just amazing for me, and meeting people and getting used to people before, say I'd be a bit more of an introvert, to stay on the computers, but then working at McDonald's, I was way more involved with people and stuff like that, which I think was really good for me. So I was working there, and I kept working there probably for like 5 or 6 years. Probably around 2015, I was still working there, and throughout that period, I'd started to really tinker around with Java and build little things, and I was getting better at it. And I had a housemate tell me, "We're doing like that at uni, man. In third year, you should definitely get into uni." So it was in the back of my mind, but it wasn't something I was considering. I'm thinking, like Don said, uni. Like, I didn't even finish high school. There's no way I'm going to get into uni. It's not going to happen. So it wasn't really something I really considered or looked into. So I was working at McDonald's, and then in 2015, I had my first kid, and it was a bit of a surprise, but that's the way it is. And so we had our first kid, and then that's when it sort of hit me. I was like, okay, well, I can't be working at McDonald's for the rest of my life, or it's not what I want to do anyway. So that's when I started to look into seriously something else, and I was considering trades and stuff like that. But that programming thing and the thing my housemate said to me kept staying in my head. So I did reach out to like QTAC and uni and stuff like that, and was like, okay, what do I need to get in? And they said, what do you have? I said, I've got Cert 3 in retail that McDonald's gave me. And they said, that's quite competitive, actually. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll take it. So anyway, so it's just like a Cert 3. Apparently I got in like straight away, no issues, and started doing my bachelor, where I don't know, like I was really bad in high school, didn't do anything, but then doing uni was different somehow. It was still work, but I was just into it, so I was starting to do pretty well and stuff like that. And programming, again, like I'd really started to improve up until entering uni. So I was getting into the coding, and I was building little plugins from Minecraft and stuff like that. So that was going real well for me. And I pretty much immediately, like, I guess I networked straight away. I didn't realize I was networking, but I did. I was trying to meet everybody that was programming. I was trying to figure out who's doing the stuff that I want to do. And I met Alex Scott, which some people know, but he was very influential to me. I met him like my first day on uni, actually. And he was probably the biggest influencer of the direction I wanted to go. Like, even though I went into IT at that stage, I still hadn't decided I wanted to be a programmer yet. I was like probably actually gravitating towards networking or something like that. But anyway, so he definitely steered me in that direction. And with the first semester, I did an internship with SafetyCulture. So I entered mid-year 2015. The end of that year, I did an internship with SafetyCulture, which was perfect timing. I think I was just ready for it. Having done that stuff before, I was totally ready for it. And, I think I did really well. Like, obviously it was, I was an intern. We were just playing around and tinkering, but it really got me going. So doing that at that time was huge for me. And then I got really into it. So at that point, I was doing this stuff at SafetyCulture. I finished up. They were like, when do you graduate? I'm just like, I'm only first semester. And they're like, oh, okay. So then I got real into it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to practice this every day. I'm going to get good at it. And every day I would just program just a little bit. And really quickly I improved as much as I can by myself. I got other people to sort of give me advice, like Alex and stuff like that. And we worked on some projects together. So within a year of being at unis, I managed to get my first job as a programmer with Finance One, which Don also worked at. And again, it was huge for me. Like, I was still the sole developer there. I was the first programmer there as well. So I was alone. I was the smartest person in the room, the only person in the room. So it was hard to learn off people. So I had to fall back to other people I knew at uni and stuff like that, like Alex. And yeah, so I worked there for about a year. And then I had a big opportunity to work with Stu, who's on the panel, at Fierce. And Stu was an experienced programmer, working on some really cool stuff. At Finance One, we had other developers come on, but I think I was the most experienced developer there, and I've been working alone this whole time. I really need good guidance. So I need somebody who's like a real programmer, right? Like I need somebody who's had the experience and just show me. So I moved over, worked for Fierce Ventures for a while, probably about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then Fierce Ventures sort of closed a little bit, and I jumped off, and I was just going to go back and focus on uni. So this whole time I was doing uni part-time, and then I worked full-time. And anyway, so uni was obviously second because I just immediately got all these opportunities. So then I was at Fierce, that finished up. I was like, oh, okay, I'll go back to uni, but then I needed work. So I was reaching out. I hit up an old client of Fierce, said, hey, you got any work? They're like, yes. So then, okay, forget all that uni stuff. I'm going to go work full-time for these guys. So started working full-time for the guys I'm currently working at. Again, only developer there. And that's where I've been since. And it's just been pretty crazy. I feel like we've got really lucky getting work at Finance One so early, the SafetyCulture internship, Fierce when they showed up. And again, the place I'm working at is amazing. I work remote. It's working really well for my family and stuff like that, like staying at home. It's I feel like I'm super lucky, and that's sort of how I ended up here. But
yeah, that's fantastic. And I think seeing your energy and your passion, as well as obviously your natural curiosity in terms of loving problem solving, is great. I think there's something really special when both your interest and your passion is the thing that you get paid for as a day job. Now, obviously being May the 5th, it might not be as appropriate as it would have been yesterday, but the idea that there are wise mentors, Yoda-like people around, like Stu, and I see Blake Pelling on the call from SafetyCulture. Guys, if you've got Yoda ears in the house, please do go and put them on. But I think we'll do a bit of a shout out to those special people that can give guidance and support us as we go through our career. Don, I'd love to turn to you and then ask you, beyond those initial steps, which was a pretty sort of unique path, and I don't think it's something that we could necessarily suggest to everybody that they find the right person to date that's going to get them into a career. Tell us, how have you become competent at your craft? Was it study? Was it micro-credentialing? Was it teaching yourself? Did you have a Yoda on the way through? And tell us about how you're sort of feeling about that and future learning at the moment.
I think I was at uni, I was so worried about not being ready to join the workforce that I over prepared for some things. I knew I actually really enjoyed writing code. So that wasn't hard for me to sort of keep working on. And it was really good at the time because I didn't have to work full time. So I could really knuckle down and kind of build up my skills. So I definitely used my university time, I think, fairly well. I think like when you come back to, when you get a second chance at self-education, you won't take it for granted. So, and I definitely didn't. I think in my, when I got that job at Finance One, I had a bit of a Yoda actually. And he was actually he was doing a university, I think through Deakin externally, but he was just a wizard. I'd ask a bunch of Brennan Wadforth, if he's probably listening. Yeah, he was my wizard. I asked him all my silly questions, and he was kind enough to not make me feel too stupid for asking them. So yeah, I bounced a lot of ideas off him and a lot of other guys there as well. Jordan, Scott, Finance One. Yeah, that was definitely a good place for me to hone my craft, figure out how things work in a business. I think writing code sometimes was the easiest part of that. It was understanding what the business wanted from me. trying to interpret those business rules was, especially with finance, there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of things going on that that you don't even really understand. I didn't have any idea about car finance.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think the idea of what are the adjacent skill sets that you develop, and perhaps you could just touch on for us, how do you think about learning or staying current as you move forward? Is continuing on the software path something that you're still investing in yourself, or are you looking to go outside of that for your future learning?
I think at the moment I'm at this point where I've got this another great opportunity to learn, and everyone allows me to sort of ask questions again. So I think I'm just happy just taking on information and just sort of absorbing for now. But I definitely try and supplement, just doing little online courses at home, building little mobile apps, that sort of thing. I definitely want to stay in the software space, just because I feel like I've barely touched the surface. I still feel quite new, even though, I mean, I've only really been in here for 18 months, actually writing code day to day. And coming from that different background, it just feels new. And I'm excited to go to work every day. It's great. So yeah, I think just have a little bit of like a kind of like I can't think of the word, but I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and there's this term where you keep your jiu-jitsu sword sharp. So you're always improving yourself. So I kind of try and take that mindset into IT a little bit, and I don't want to be stale. I always want to stay current, and just talking to people and seeing what's relevant and what they think I should be learning. So I try and take that on board.
Great. Yeah, I think this concept of the network that Caleb touched on is really interesting, and obviously the role of a group like DevNQ in that space if you're not in a formal network like university. Now, Miranda, you have actually extended outside of the pure software development role. Could you touch on a little bit of that, how you've sort of made that transition into those broader skill sets and those roles, and then perhaps touch on for us, if you would, what you look for in employees or people coming into the space regards to that capacity that they have already versus, say, academic credentials as such?
Yeah. So I'll answer the first one. My technical background actually isn't as a developer, but as a systems engineer. So first start on the service desk, work my way up from there into level 3 support. And then 4 years ago, I had someone, my employer, approach me and asked me if I'd be interested in a supervisor role. To be really honest, I never thought initially that I'd lead people. I didn't think that would be my strong suit. But I took the opportunity. So I guess my recommendation is to take any opportunity, at least give it a go. And I actually really enjoyed it. Since taking that move, I've been promoted up into a superintendent role, and I'm really enjoying it. So I guess it's those people around you may not realise some of the qualities that you exhibit until someone else identifies it, and then they give you, if you're really lucky, that opportunity. And just encourage anyone just to take those opportunities if you're interested and have a go. The other question around qualities I look for in employees, specifically around leadership roles, Matt, or just in general?
I think it's really, obviously we've heard quite a few different paths into this space. And I think there's probably a lot of people that think about what is that balance between, say, time spent at uni versus time spent literally just diving into a project, tinkering, hitting YouTube or whatever other source there might be to have a crack at something. And then we've obviously got these things that a lot of you have discussed in terms of internships or being able to somehow apply that skill set, whether it was academic or not, into a work environment. So when you're looking at this idea of employing people in this space, how do you weigh up those different backgrounds, those different skill sets? And is there a clear answer one way or the other? Or, maybe discuss how you, get the balance of it.
Yeah, so I guess in the context, if we've got a graduate applying for a role or a recent, and, generally doesn't have a lot of work experience, some of the real key things that we look for is some demonstrated customer service skills. So Caleb, you gave us a really good example of that earlier. You worked at Macdonald's, but that demonstrates that you can interact with people and you develop that skill set. If you were put against another candidate that may not have any work experience, whether it be IT or otherwise, you'll stand out in front. One of the key reasons for that is a lot of our projects that we run are quite small and we need our developers to work with the business. So if you can demonstrate that capability, that will definitely be a big plus. An ability or a demonstrated ability to learn and adapt to change. So, if you've show that initiative to identify a gap in your knowledge and then, seek out ways to fill that gap, either through work experience or through doing another short course to gap fill. That's a really important aspect. The industry will change over time and you need to be able to adapt to that. Just display of that initiative. So like Matt mentioned, you might undertake a project in your own time. If you do have that capacity or ability to do that, it's definitely a plus.
And so, Miranda, in terms of then, you are open to hiring people without degrees. A degree as such, a formal degree, isn't like a mandatory requirement, but just something that you take into account?
Yeah, so it's a good question. For a lot of our positions, we do require degrees. On the other hand, if you've got a person that's got a lot of demonstrated industry experience, that can outweigh the degree. So the degree isn't everything. Personally, what I learned at uni, I use very little of, even when I was in a technical role. It's a way to get in the door and you learn so much more on the job. But both are important. It just depends. So without much work experience, you'll need a degree to sort of get into some of these roles or some other way of demonstrating that knowledge. Otherwise, with work experience, generally the degree becomes less important.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, Stu, I might throw to you just to sort of touch on when, obviously, in the different organisations that you'd worked within, and then onto your own business, what was your perspective on, say, the validity or the trust that you could have in a certification or a degree in terms of capability versus really just wanting to know that people had that attitude of, if I don't know it right now, I know how to learn, so I'll find a way to get it done?
Yeah, good question, Matt. I did certifications, as many as I could do early on in my career, which was 25 years ago. And the reason I was doing them was because that knowledge wasn't available anywhere else. It was sort of pre-internet, or just as the internet was beginning to grow, and we didn't have access to all of the world's knowledge at our fingertips at the time. And I used the certifications, not so much for the piece of paper, but more to learn some skills that nobody else had, that I could then, extract some value out of. Today, I think it's particularly in technology, it's less of an issue because we have access to, basically all the information. We can learn anything we want to, and for almost for free. So, I look Personally, when I'm looking to hire a contractor or an employee, I weigh less on certifications and more on demonstrated ability. What has this person built? What can they build? You know, what problems have they been able to solve? What initiative have they taken? I think those are much more valuable attributes than a certification specifically. If you want to, if I had to choose between hiring someone with a degree and hiring someone who'd built something, I would always take the person who's been able to show me some code or show me a product, show me a problem they've been able to solve. And this was, the exact, one of the reasons that we hired Caleb, it was our very first employee at Fierce, was because he had built something and he just had a very deep desire to learn new things, deep curiosity. He just had a deep passion for it. And I knew that even if he didn't know it, something, if we wanted him to solve a particular problem with a particular technology, even if he didn't know it now, he loved it so much that he could go and solve it. And once he was on board, he did that repeatedly. And I think those attributes are far more important than a piece of paper specifically, unless it can teach you skills that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, certainly. And so, look, I think we're probably getting into the last third of this session, and we've got some great questions from the audience. So, Stu, while you're in frame, I'm going to throw one to you from Vikash. How do we see the IT market post-COVID-19 in Townsville, North Queensland? And I see in the chat that he's also specifically referring to himself doing a Master of IT and thinking about cloud computing and AWS certification.
Yeah, I think it's clear that there's going to be a shift in the landscape around how companies distribute their workforce and how we as individuals work. Companies will be much more open to allowing employees to work remotely, and they will, and out of that change in the ecosystem, there's just going to be a ton of interesting opportunities to build new kinds of products to enable people to work in ways that we can't imagine. And out of that, there's going to be a ton of innovation and, again, a ton of opportunities to build new and interesting, hopefully profitable businesses. And we are remote. Townsville is remote, but there's no reason now, given that the world is so connected, that we can't compete. We just need smart, innovative, driven people, and we can build some of those products. We can build some of those, solve some of those interesting problems. There's, in the past 20 years, if you wanted to be taken seriously as a technology startup, you would have to locate to, San Francisco, the East Bay, San Jose, Silicon Valley. But now, that's no longer true. You can, and Blake and Luke and Tristan have proven this at SafetyCulture. You can build big billion-dollar companies from Townsville, and yeah, I think while this this whole COVID thing has been terrible, I do believe that, and I am an optimist. I believe there are going to be a ton of interesting opportunities to come out of this for anyone who's looking for them, and yeah, we just need to find problems to solve and build solutions, and we can do that from here.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's great looking at that upside of this scenario. And Tristan, we won't get you to talk about it right now, but knowing that you're operating for a business in Singapore from Townsville, I think it speaks to that concept that the Townsville market might not be your limitation if you happen to be living in Townsville at the moment. Now, Caleb, we've got a question from Alex and Sean on the YouTube chat. How do you stay up to date in this rapidly evolving environment? I think it's one thing, when you've got a lot of downtime, to be able to tinker all day and be learning new things, and but when you're actually in your day job and you're earning for the family, you've got deliverables on the cards, and you're the only sort of person there to do it. How do you stay up to date? How do you find the time?
I think I should acknowledge that my situation is fairly different to what it could be. I worked on a lot of greenfields projects starting out, So I've had a lot of opportunities to, I guess, pick and choose and research tech I can use. So I can only speculate as to, I guess, how you would stay up to date if you were working on like legacy software, or if you had a more narrow role, say you were like just a backend developer only or something like that. I'm not too sure, but for the stuff that I've been doing, it's I guess there's stuff that I'm passionate about, that I'm just curious about, that I want to look into, which I'll find time to do, and not in depth. I just sort of play around with it. And I guess there's other stuff that I need to do. So I need to solve a problem at work. And then when I need to do that, I will then go ahead and explore solutions, new solutions, current solutions, and that sort of thing. I feel like most of the stuff I've learned that was new to me was recommended to me from other people. So I think networking, as weird as it sounds, is probably my answer to that question. I can't imagine, unless I was talking to people or reading up on things, I wouldn't really know what to look into that's like new. But by talking to people and having conversations, I'm able to learn, like having them tell me, oh, you should check this out. And I can tell them, oh, actually, you should also check that out. And so I think, yeah, networking a lot. And if you have if you're able to work on new projects and stuff like that, it's definitely a big opportunity to go out there and look at what's new and that sort of thing.
Right.
So I stay up to that way.
And so, Don, you're obviously busy. You're working on a specific sort of project. I'm going to sort of combine a bit of two questions here. How do you sort of stay current? Are you even getting the time to explore out of the work that you currently do? And then we've got a question around mentors and finding mentors. Obviously, a couple of the examples we've heard seem to happen quite organically. If that's not currently available to you, have you got any advice for people in terms of extending your network to be able to go out and seek those wizards, as you called them?
It's kind of hard when you are working full time to come home and find. Sometimes, you know, if you're busy in the afternoon, so just, you know, jump onto something straight away. But I use dev.to, like TO. I peruse through there a little bit sometimes if I'm looking for something interesting to look at. I mean, other people might have other ways that they sort of find out about new tech. I get a lot of things that like spammed in my inbox telling me about what I should do. I get a lot of AWS stuff. But in terms of, yeah, trying to keep myself current, if I don't know something, I'll probably jump on lynda.com and try and brush up on that. And mainly people at work, we do demos. I think one demo that we had recently was on GPRC, I think is the way that you say that. I think that's a framework, excuse my lack of knowledge, about writing APIs. And that was a really great demonstration. And that was something that was a way for me to find out what I didn't know and what I could learn more about. So that's sort of about that. About the mentors, the reason why I went to JESI for this graduate scheme is because I wanted a mentor. I knew how valuable they are. I've had plenty of mentors in the past, like in all kinds, like martial arts. They're great. You know, even in construction, you usually get an old bricklayer that'll come and take you under his wing and he'll teach you a few things. I've always found that a very valuable experience. One way that you could probably find a mentor if you weren't in my situation is come to things like DevNQ and network and try and talk to people. Come to, if you're at uni, go to Tim Tam time that they have. You can meet some interesting people there and perhaps find some mentorship. Put your hand up for any internships that you get. I did an internship at SafetyCulture. You can find great mentors there. I think.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah,
that's great. So Miranda, you have shifted the emphasis of your career to include management, etc., in a quite a formal sort of organizational structure, how do you find the whole concept of mentors and networks as it pertains to, you know, supporting your work and your choices, including sort of going down the management path? And then we'll get you to then touch on, considering where you are today and that you've taken quite a diverse journey, what advice would you give, or do you wish you'd given your 17-year-old self, sitting from where you are today, if you could do that?
So mentors, it's happened organically for me. It's made a huge difference in I guess it's what I've heard before. It's about what people say about you when you're not in the room. So there's really important decisions that are made around your career happen generally when you're not there. You know, you can go to a job interview at a new workplace, but if you're looking to further yourself in your current workplace, for example, all those experiences that you have with your peers, with your management, with people out in the business actually go a really long way and can influence your path for the better and sometimes not so much for the better. And also with mentors, one thing that I never used to do was ask for feedback and questions. Don't be afraid to do that with your peers or the people that work for you. For those that have reports and your managers, they appreciate it. And also, don't be afraid to ask, you know, for someone to mentor you in a more formal capacity or informally. They can be really flattered by that request. Just remember that you need to you'll put that work into as well and make sure that mentor-mentee relationship works well. Advice for my 17-year-old self, to be honest, in my path, I wouldn't do too much different. What I would say is accept the opportunities when they come up. One thing that did bother me for a very long time, and you'll see that in my path, it did concern me that I didn't know exactly which stream to go into and what I would enjoy. But I guess accepting the opportunities, give it a go, and then you'll find out for yourself whether you do enjoy something or you don't, and then adjust. So just don't get too hung up on not knowing all the details really early on, as long as you're enjoying what you're doing. Great,
fantastic. And so, Caleb, it's everything seems to be working out pretty well for you. What is there anything that you'd tell your 17-year-old self to do differently, or anything else you'd tell your 17-year-old self not to worry about?
I think I wouldn't do a whole lot different. I think I would. I think that somehow everything just worked out really well. 17-year-old me would have never thought that I'd get to where I am right now. And I think the big things were, mentorship, as you guys are discussing. I think just finding someone, I guess, not so much to mentor you, but to help them, basically. Find someone who's working on projects, or, you know, it doesn't even have to be locally. Like, it's in the space of software, everyone's tinkering. So it's always online or even locally, you can find people, even the coding stuff for kids and things like that. Just help people work together on a project in any capacity that you can. You know, if you're new, you're not going to be able to help out a lot, but you can help out a bit. And when your mentor is seeing you help them, they're really eager to get you to keep helping, I guess, and they'll teach you and they'll show you things and stuff like that. And also networking was massive for me and crucial. I think I feel like I'm super lucky. It hasn't been difficult to find work at all. Work always just seems to come to me and opportunities just show up. And I think it's all to do with networking, just getting to know everybody in the community around you, being interested in what they're doing, you know, having conversations and stuff like that. It's been huge for me. And every job that I've gotten, I think I've gotten because somebody has talked to someone else or someone that I've known. In fact, every time it has been that case. So I would say don't worry too much. Just network. That time when you practice every day, definitely do that. And yeah, find other people to work with. Find your mentors. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Don, you've just had a baby. You've got a solid job. You're in a good career. What are you telling your 17-year-old self?
I probably wouldn't tell them to change a lot. I mean, I didn't like myself particularly as a 17-year-old. I was a terrible student. But I think my experiences, like, I just think the way that I sort of just had to experience and go through life brought me to here. And to be honest, this point that I'm at right now is the best one that I can think of. I think I'd say to my 17-year-old self, maybe just be a bit more open-minded. Don't stop learning. Don't get satisfied with the status quo. You know, always just keep searching for things that are new and exciting.
Great. And I think it's that idea that we don't have to be too hard on yourself at the time is great for young people, that there are all sorts of future paths available. Stu, can you remember 17? I know it's a struggle for me. What are you telling your 17-year-old self? What sort of attitude did you have at the time, and would have you listened?
I probably wouldn't have listened, but if I could go back, I would have done something really interesting. Like I would have gone to uni, and I would have worked harder. I didn't work at all. I sort of coasted through with just the minimal amount of effort required to get through, even less than minimal, because I failed a few papers. And it wasn't because I didn't have intelligence, I just didn't have any desire, because there was nothing I loved. But I think if I could go back, I would have done something which was cutting edge at the time, and I would have made much more sacrifice around effort and put a lot more energy into it. You know, I think we underestimate when we're young, you know, the value of time, and I wish I'd utilized that time better. And, you know, I've got 4 little kids, and when they're entering that phase of their lives, and even now, I'm trying to condition them to understand the value of time, and to make sure that they're working hard on the things that they love, and pursuing the things that they enjoy, and you know, just do interesting things with your life.
That sounds like good advice. So Stu, Caleb, Don, Miranda, it's been a real privilege to get to hear some of your background, your story, to share with some of your passion. So I'd like to say a really big thank you for being so open and honest and vulnerable with us tonight. Tristan, I'll just throw to you for DevNQ updates at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Just let me pull up some details. So thanks everyone for coming along, and especially thanks to the panelists. It has been great to have the panelists on here. People on the call won't know this, but they had to do some prep beforehand, and they've all been on video calls with me preparing and everything like that. So I'd really like to thank them for volunteering their time, not only tonight, but in preparation for the event. I'd also like to thank the organising committee for their work in getting everything together for this event. If you've seen this event on social media or somewhere like that, they've all been putting that together and helping organise everything. So thank you very much to them. What we will do just quickly is do a couple of quick plugs now, because you know we love some quick plugs at the end. So if you are interested in finding out about jobs in North Queensland, please sign up for our mailing list. We're trying to send these out on a more regular basis. So if you go to s.devnq.org/sign up, you can sign up for our mailing list to receive the latest jobs that we know about in here in North Queensland to your inbox. That will go out about mid-monthly. And if you actually have any jobs you want to advertise, send them through to jobs@devnq.org, and I'll make sure that they get in there. The other thing I wanted to kind of touch upon is that we've got another meetup coming next month. We had a quick break there due to the kind of COVID-19 restrictions, but we're trying to get back into it. So on June 2nd, we'll be back on Zoom and YouTube, and we've got a guest speaker who is a developer with the fintech company FlashFX. They do foreign exchange with using cryptocurrency principles. So that'll be a really interesting talk. He's going to talk about how they build progressive web apps, which are basically apps that act like real apps from a web browser. They run in web views and kind of work natively, but they're all built on the web. So that'll be really interesting from him. And finally, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us, and I'll throw back to Matt to thank you for the same. But thanks, everyone, and I hope you have a good evening.
Tristan, thanks a lot. I think I can't recommend DevNQ highly enough as a community. I think what Tristan, the organising committee and the team do in terms of wanting to make sure that they're supporting the local community is quite amazing. I think you guys are a real asset for us, and I think as the broader sort of Smart Precinct program moves ahead, we look forward to continuing to support what you do. And I think as the SafetyCulture team have shown us, these modern skill sets really can at the core of helping change the world. And there may or may not be a Ferrari at the end of it for you, but it sounds like at the very least you can have a very interesting career. So well done.
All right. Well, thank you all. Have a good evening, and thanks for joining us.